Jamal Roberts was standing in the wings of the American Idol stage, his heart beating as if it were a drum in a New Orleans second-line parade. After the lights were turned on, the audience erupted in applause, and Ryan Seacrest's voice resounded across the theater as he announced that he had won the 22nd season of the competition. Jamal, a soulful crooner from Baton Rouge, had just successfully won the most prestigious talent competition in the world. He was 24 years old. The judges, Carrie Underwood, Luke Bryan, and Lionel Richie, were rendered speechless by his performance of Stevie Wonder's As, and ultimately, the American people voted him the winner of the competition. The confetti began to fall, the cameras began to zoom in, and the prospect of a recording deal, in addition to a financial award of $250,000, hung before him like a golden carrot. On the other hand, what the entire world was unaware of, and what Jamal himself would not learn until several months later, was that the prize money was not what it appeared to be. Jamal was able to make it through a frenzy of interviews, picture shoots, and studio sessions, because he was wrapped up in the feelings of victory. As a young boy, he had participated in church choirs, performed as a busker on Bourbon Street, and yearned for a life that stretched beyond the confines of his mother's tight shotgun house. He was now signing autographs and avoiding the photographers at the same time. The award of $250,000 was going to be his ticket to stability. It was intended to bring him the opportunity to pay off his mother's mortgage, support his debut record, and possibly even purchase a car that didn't stop at red lights. On the other hand, when the check was finally delivered, the values did not match up. The situation began with a phone call from his new manager, Sheila, who was a woman who spoke quickly and had a preference for wearing power suits. It was with a hurried voice that she instructed Jamal, we need to talk about the prize. Is that the sum of $250,000? In a sense, it is not exactly liquid. When Jamal was sitting on the edge of his hotel bed in Los Angeles, he grimaced. The metropolis was still giving him the impression that it was a strange planet. In response, he inquired, "What do you mean, not liquid?" In her explanation, Sheila stated that the prize money was subject to taxes, including federal, state, and even some local levies. After that, there were costs for administration and legal services, as well as a portion that was reserved for promotional expenses. When all of the deductions were taken into account, Jamal was staring at a figure that was closer to $120,000. There was a rumbling in his tummy. Even while that was a significant amount of money, it was not the kind of windfall that would completely transform his life. After a week had passed, the major surprise occurred during a meeting with the accountants of the record label. After sitting him down in a posh office with a view of the Hollywood Hills, they presented him with a contract that was more substantial than a church Bible. To clarify, the sum of $250,000 was not merely a monetary prize. Rather, it was an advance against his future profits. It was the label's responsibility to recuperate every dollar that he spent on recording, marketing, or touring before he received any additional compensation. In the process of fixing his glasses, the accountant said, "Think of it as a loan. Your brand is receiving an investment from you." Jamal's thoughts were all over the place. Or a loan? Even though he had not applied for a banknote, he had won a competition. The promise that he had made to his mother to purchase a new home came to him as he thought of his mother, who was still working double shifts at the hospital. With a loan that he had previously made a partial payment on, how was he going to do that? In the course of the weeks that went into months, Jamal's American Idol radiance started to diminish. His requests to include original songs that were rooted in the soul and jazz of his Louisiana heritage were ignored by the record label, which pushed him to record an album that was primarily comprised of cover tunes. The producer responded by saying, "We need hits, Jamal. The sound that you have is fantastic, yet it is not commercial." Every single studio session, every single clothing fitting, and every single promotional event all contributed to the money that he was awarded. When his CD was finally released, he was in a condition of financial ruin that he had never been in before, not even when he was busking for tips. At least in those days, he was the one who was allowed to retain the dollar bills and quarters. At some point during an appearance on a late-night talk program, the breaking point occurred. Jamal was questioned by the host, who was all smiles and charm, about what he had done with the money he had won. The audience laughed uproariously, anticipating a tale of extravagant spending, perhaps on a sports vehicle or a Rolex watch. The truth was rising up like bile, and Jamal paused in his tracks. In spite of the fact that he might have lied, fabricated a story about charitable contributions or astute investments, something snapped. The tone of his voice was rough as he stated, "I ain't seen most of it." A smirk appeared on the host's face. He pressed the question, "What do you mean?" It was then when Jamal's bombshell announcement regarding the prize money he won on American Idol was revealed to the public. It was revealed to the entire world that the $250,000 had been reduced by taxes and fees, and that the record company had regarded it as an advance rather than a real award. He talked of the pressure to produce music that he did not believe in, the never-ending deductions for expenses that he could not comprehend, and the sinking understanding that celebrity was not freedom, but rather a golden cage. Both of these things were mentioned. There was a gasp from the audience. The host frantically tried to cut to the commercial, and social media went into a frenzy. Became popular inside a few hours. At the same time as some fans wrote messages of support, others questioned about the show's terms and conditions. Jamal's account was supported by some of the former candidates, but others chose to remain silent due to the fact that they were bound by their own label obligations. The repercussions were rushed. The American Idol organization made a response in which it referred to Jamal's assertions as misleading and emphasized that all of the stipulations of the prizes were included in the contracts that the players signed. However, the harm had already been done. The legitimacy of the show was called into question by viewers, and prospective singers were reluctant to try out for the show. Jamal, on the other hand, was subjected to a different kind of challenge. His manager warned that he was burning bridges in the industry, and the record company prepared to take legal action against him for breach of contract. For the first time since his victory, Jamal experienced a sense of liberation. There was no amount of legalese that could take away the fact that he had conveyed the truth. Jamal and his mother were sitting on their front porch, which was sagging, when they returned to Baton Rouge. Even though the automobile continued to splutter and the mortgage was still owing, he experienced a lightening of the load. Once more he had begun making music. This time it was genuine music, the type that came straight from his heart. A video of him singing an original song about his experience was uploaded to the website. The music was raw and unrefined. When it was honest, rather than because of a label's marketing budget, it went viral and became extremely popular. He was able to record independently thanks to the contributions of his fans to a crowdsourcing effort. Although it was not a total of $250,000, it was sufficient to get things started. Jamal's admission did not bring American Idol to its knees, but it did start a discussion about various topics. It was then that aspiring artists started reading contracts with greater attention, asking questions, and demanding transparency. Jamal himself became a symbol of resiliency, demonstrating that brilliance could triumph over even the most shady of business combinations. As he played his guitar beneath the evening sky in Louisiana, he came to the realization that the true prize was not the money. Rather, it was the voice that he had discovered, not just to sing, but also to communicate.